Who are we? We are a human race. And when I think about the human race, and I think about a biblical scripture that talks about we are our brother's keeper. And so we need to be aware of each other, because racism, as mentioned, does exist, injustices does exist, but we are human beings. You know, it's not a Republican, it's not a Democrat, we all bleed red blood, so we are a human race. And when I think about where is here, to me, here is now. Here is now. And how we define ourselves can't be based on how the world has tried to define us. Because I, growing up as a woman, African American, the labels and the images that the world has for me does not fit. I've been typecast. And so the room that I'm in oftentimes is very, very crooked because of the way people look at me and how people perceive me. So we're here now. We need to understand that we are in a world that's kind of crooked. And I think it's important that we all learn how to stand straight in a crooked room. That means we need to call out injustices when we see them. And we can't tolerate discrimination and hatred. We should try to eliminate those things. So what it does, it takes courage for us to call those things out. And when we see injustices and we see wrong, we need to try to make them right. And that takes effort. It takes being involved, because if we want a good government and if we want a better world, then we have to be engaged in it.
So we might talk a little bit about losing ground, because it addresses the question of where is here. So we did scores of interviews with people, experts in these topics, community leaders from all over the state, people who are living the disparity every day. And what we found were the reasons are not simple. They're complex and they're interrelated. So some of them, you know, people talked about intergenerational cycles of poverty and what that means for families. Inequities in education, the loss of affirmative action, changes in the economy, like the loss of the kinds of jobs that used to be a path to middle class, disproportionately hurt minority families. Changes in family structure, double-digit growth in single-parent families, the cost of college skyrocketing, becoming unavailable to people. All of these things together were things that different people pointed to as things that had to be addressed, and altogether, the impact is what we see here. The response to losing ground has been pretty swift. Representative Angela Williams introduced some legislation in the state house this year to try to, or the state legislature, to try to root out whether Colorado was adding to this disparity in the way that we use tax dollars at the state. And community groups have started mobilizing to try to figure out how to take action. Okay, now we know where we are with all of these measurements. What do we do about it? So for example, the Colorado Black Roundtable has decided they're going to have a summer-long education campaign modeled around losing ground, and they will culminate with a summit this fall at Manual High School, and they've broken people up into action groups to try to address these topic by topic. So looking at issues like education and the economy and incarceration. So they're addressing those, and that's just getting started. So I'm sure that anyone who would want to be involved in that can get a hold of the folks at the Colorado Black Roundtable. So that is just a look at where is here right now. Those are the numbers of now.
Thank you. So, you know, my first reaction is that one of the things we have to be careful about as we understand the widespread nature of these issues is not to feel overwhelmed and powerless, feeling as though we have to solve every issue in every area in order to feel a sense of success. So I think we need people with passion. I think we also need to think about how do we build coalitions. Because if all we are is individual self-interest folks, we are not going to pull together across the lines of building a community. And building a sense of community is still very critical to getting accomplished what we want to accomplish in terms of dealing with injustice. How do we do that? Not easily. But I want to tell you that what I tell my students, which is sort of the message that the mayor delivered today, I don't care that much what they think they're learning in my class. What I care about is that when they come out, they have two thoughts. They can matter, and they can make a difference.
You know, I think, Laura, the Losing Ground Project really sort of gets to the heart of sort of what's going on. And there's been a lot of really good journalism over the last 10, 15 years that sort of helps us understand what's happening. I mean, one thing is, you know, when you look at the EEOC data, you see that the people that lose ground most during a recession are people of color. So you are constantly falling down a couple of rungs on the ladder and have to climb back up. It's really hard to make progress when you're falling back during bad economic times. So that's one thing that helps account for, you know, those statistics. You know, secondarily, well, not necessarily secondarily, but second point is that the income gap has just widened over the last 15 or 20 years. I mean, part of what you see is sort of the vanishing middle class, because the income gap between here and there, the top 3%, 5%, is greater than it's ever been. And, you know, I think a number of people who are in policymaking positions have really talked about those two things that help kind of contribute to the problem. And a lot of that has been, you know, driven by some really, really good journalism over the last 10, 15 years. You know, in Philadelphia and the New York Times and other places, even on the local level, public television, things of that nature. So there's a lot of places where you can get answers as to why this is happening. I'd just like to take a crack at Dr. Waring's last question about, you know, where do we want to go, and maybe more precisely, what do we want to be? And I would say that I think we want to be a society where everybody gets a chance to reach their full potential, and it takes a lot of work for that to happen. You know, and it starts with the whole dignity point that the gentleman made at the very beginning, but it's a commitment to a higher aspiration that we can't afford to waste anything, and it's one of the things that's made America great. And you know, at least from where I'm coming from, and speaking on behalf of my family and my children, that's the kind of society where I want to see us go. So,
Thank you. Let's bring it back to the audience. Before I do that, though, and Representative Fields, in no way, shape, fashion, or form wants this light cast, you know, upon her. But I think it's really important to acknowledge once again that some folks talk the talk and other folks walk the walk or walk the talk, and that for an elected official to have the courage of conviction and the integrity to take a particular stand, even if it means death threats and what have you. I think it's really important, and just to acknowledge the work that you've done around issues of gun control in the State House.